Welcome to the Fresh and Fired Up podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Emily Marshall, here to help you function at your best in health, fitness, and life. Joined by my co-host, I'm so excited, she made it back, the wild, wonderful Haley Pindle. Let's get fired up.
Let's get fired up. I'm back from Mexico.
Yeah, I know. And you totally got sun this time.
I did. I got sunburnt. You know what my conclusion was with that? When Jess and I we went in November and the sun wasn't as strong. And now when my family went in March, which the sun is a little bit stronger, and I literally got burnt the first day. My cousin got burnt the first day. We got one of those people on the beach, that come around and like try and sell stuff. We got him to get zinc for us, zinc oxide in town, and he totally did it. I freaking love going to Mexico. They're amazing people.
That's great. I'm so glad you guys had fun. That's awesome. We're going to have to hear more about it, but maybe on another episode because we have so much to cover today. It's going to be such a powerful episode. And the guest we have on today, we are joined by Dr. Suzanne Bober, and we've known each other for a long time, but we have these gaps and windows of time where we just aren't in each other's lives. And then all of a sudden we come back into each other's lives, and it's kind of like ebbed and flowed like that for, I don't know, probably at least like 15 years.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
And it's nice how, and I think we ebb and flow for a reason. We connect again for a reason.
Totally. And so I'm really excited to introduce you and have you on the show. Dr. Suzanne Bober is a doctor of chiropractic as well. And she's the founder of Harborfront Chiropractic in downtown Toronto. She's the creator of a new book. Her book is just out. She's the creator of the Infinite Balance Blueprint, which we'll talk about. But her book is Burnout Rewired. I have a copy right here. If you're on our YouTube channel, which you should go, subscribe to our YouTube channel, order the book. It's a good one. Make sure you leave reviews on both channels and on her book. It's so good. So that's really exciting. We're going to talk about that some. And it's one of those things. I looked up these stats, okay? And it was like 81% of people, or at least this is like a North American stat, want to write a book in their lifetime.
Yes.
And you actually did, but it's only like something like 15% will start it, but not finish it. 6% will get to the halfway point, but then it's only about 3% or fewer that actually go through the whole process. So congratulations on going through the whole process. That's amazing.
Well, thank you. I love that you're up on your stats because it's true. And I can see a big blockage for a lot of people. For me, I couldn't believe once the editing came back that first round and you feel like you've been like punched in the stomach. You're like, wow, it's unbelievable the growth process that happens there. So I can see how people get very caught up in how they want their book and have somebody that's experienced in that editing realm that kind of comes back and gives them feedback. And they probably just say, okay, that's me done.
Yeah.
It's a huge growth process.
It's so much growth. And I'd love to talk about the growth you've had in your life because, you've worked with a lot of high achieving, driven individuals, especially following the years of COVID. And throughout that time, I know it says in your book, you started to notice a pattern. And it's like the pattern with people doing all the right things, yet still feeling exhausted, anxious, or disconnected with their energy levels. And I believe this is part of what led you to this completely different approach on burnout and how to shift your focus and actually understand how to strengthen and support your nervous system. And then obviously you have your whole doctorate background and then years of experience in your clinic working with so many different types of people. And so I want to hear about the process of you developing and authoring your book and what brought you to this point in your life. I know that's a big place to start, and there's like a whole lot of detail you could fill in, but just to give an overview of like who you are for our listeners.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love your questions are all so convoluted, but really come down to, a good introduction. So yeah, and you being a chiropractor as well, essentially what we're focused on is transforming, I think of it as transforming stress into energy in the clinic. So in somebody's spine, in somebody's body, and really have been doing that for more than 25 years. And really in the last, let's say 5 years, because of course we all tend to demarcate a transition after COVID, is really starting to see people that were showing up that were more had way more high levels of stress and anxiety, and they were coming in with that being on their intake form. So that was a big role in where a lot of this pain started from. And really what I started to see, and I think I'd seen it over the years, but it was really so much more clear in the last 3 to 4 years, is really where that energy, and again, I go back to nervous system, and energy is really where I think it's our biggest asset that we have. And when I was able to help remove the interference in their nervous system to liberate that energy, a lot of these younger people, younger generation, it was being blocked in their thoughts and their beliefs. And really that was taking so much of their energy. It wasn't allowing their bodies to actually fully heal. And really, when I took a step back, I thought, how can I, and the bigger picture was really that led to burnout. So these young people that were, let's say the age range, probably 23 to maybe 33, 34, kind of really early on in their careers, were really having to go off on stress leaves. And quite a lot of them were having multiple stress leaves before they're 30. And then by the time they came back, nothing had changed. So they got to the stage where they were starting to say, well, it's not worth the money. I'm going to, do something else or take a pay cut, because really this younger generation, I think more than any of us, really values well-being. And they're not kind of wanting to take on our, let's say passing down of just deal with it. Just hustle, just grind, just kind of carry on. It's like, well, no, it's a bigger problem than that. So I really wanted to come up with something. This is where I developed the Infinite Balance Blueprint, was really something that people could use that didn't have to come to my office, and really could connect that energy flow from their thoughts, their beliefs to their spine, and being able to make a change in their nervous system. Because really, if we don't change the nervous system, our stress load just gets bigger, and we just lose the capacity to be able to adapt to it. And I think that's the challenge. And especially, if I can just say one little point before you carry on, is really where I think our psychology is running an outdated operating system. In our world, our technology is upgrading daily. So we've got this mismatch that's happening, and particularly more so recently with AI being such a huge, I think, stressor for people. We're really losing that ability to kind of catch up and align our minds and our bodies for optimal energy. Does that answer your question, I hope?
So well said. And I know Haley's going to have some questions coming out of this too. So,
I love
Haley,
it.
is there anything you want to jump in on?
Oh my gosh. So being in that like age range of like what you said, I'm curious to like your own person. Have you gone through burnout a lot in your life? I'm assuming so, that you have maybe a personal connection.
Well,
Um,
it's funny. I haven't gone through burnout, but I've kind of been able to take a step back and really watch to see. I think the biggest thing for me was almost feeling like I wasn't, let's say I wasn't good enough to be able to help every single person on the table. I think that's really where I saw, from my standpoint, was there was a blockage. And if I didn't help people correct that, then no matter what we could see on the table as far as improvement and in their alignment, in their nervous system, even with the technology that we use, I guess I started to feel like, what am I doing wrong? And when I could see that there was an I say easy, it's not easy. Let's say a simple way, a simple concept to link everything together for everybody, that they could implement it and not feel like it was another thing to add to their to-do list. That's really where it sort of centered for me. And I think I just saw so many young burnout professionals in my practice that I really felt that was where the bridge happened, if that made sense. That was sort of where I came from to help, and where they came from with the need.
mhm. So I don't want to like pry too much, so everyone go buy your book. But what are like the pillars, if you can just go like very briefly through the pillars of your blueprint that are like, okay, I am a 27-year-old woman working 3 jobs and I'm really burnt out. How do I get to a place where my nervous system is regulated?
Perfect question. So I have sort of three levels in the blueprint. And really, if you know much about burnout from the standpoint of changing beliefs and mindset, that doesn't change if we don't start at the foundational principle level. And for me, that's the spine, that's the nervous system. And to be able to teach people how to keep the resistance off their nervous system without even needing to be adjusted. I always say chiropractic's kind of like to level up your the experience from the blueprint, but essentially without even having to let's say see a chiropractor, being able to know how to position your spine when you're sitting all day at a desk, which we were never meant to do, when you're able to understand the clarity and the focus that comes when you align your spine for optimization, when you learn how to strengthen the core muscles that can maintain that when you get hit with extra stress. That's your foundation. So I think of that as kind of the foundational pillar is from the spine. And that's really focused on the body. The second tier I talk about is now working with your system. So this is how to teach people, and I talk about a brave shift with the acronym BRAVE. And essentially what that's doing is teaching people in the moment how to shift how their nervous system is, let's say, reacting to stress, and teaching it how to respond. And these are techniques you can use. Again, I use the word simple because they are, but it's not easy to implement every moment of the day. That's where the work comes in. And being able to shift your body's response in the moment so that each time, it does take some work, each time you're using this technique and each time stress hits you, it hits you a little less intensely. And then all of a sudden you start to see, oh, I actually have more energy instead of it being depleted. Because that's a big component, right? We just lose energy at the end of the day. Most of us end up in an energy depleted state rather than energy recharged. And then that third tier, and again, you can't really change things on this third level until you follow the steps before, because we know that, our nervous system, particularly our prefrontal cortex, if you've talked about that before, our executive brain, it literally shuts off when we're in stress and survival mode. So no change is going to be able to happen. But that third level now, we're talking about changing the inner code. So changing how your thought patterns. What thoughts are you thinking that are depleting your energy every single day? Like, I'm never going to get this done. I'm not good enough. I don't have enough time to do this, to flipping them to thoughts that are energy recharging. The opposite. Oh my gosh, I have all the time that I need. I actually have, a background that is very beneficial to this situation that maybe a lot of other people don't have, these types of things. And then that final inner code is really changing your belief system. And at the top of that foundational pillar is really elevating yourself. And have you guys read U Squared by Pritchett? I can't remember his first name. Have you ever read that book? U Squared?
I haven't read it, but I read that part in your book that
It's this
referenced it.
tiny, tiny little book, and he talks about this sort of leveling up, and I think people talk about U squared or U 2.0, that kind of thing. It's kind of that idea where really you only ever, can perform at the level that you believe that you can. So it's leveling up your self-image so that you can feel as though you can move beyond and expand and actually be able to respond to greater levels of stress in your environment than you did previously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, this just showed up in my life literally like 20 minutes before we hopped on this call
Oh
too,
my gosh. Ow.
which is so funny. One of my employees, she was feeling burnt out. So we were like, okay, how do we kind of like lower your stress load, lower your workload? So we came up with a solution. However, that puts me in a position to have like not as much like employees to do the things that need to be done. And Before, I would have been like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have so much more work. I'm going to like not have any time for myself, blah, 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 spiral into all of these like negative thoughts. And just to your point of like needing to get to that end point and that end pillar, now I can view it as like, okay, this is a great opportunity for us to grow as a company. And like, this is like just the little bit of push maybe that we needed to like hire someone else on so we can have some more capacity. And it's a completely new thing of like, rather than me being like, I can't handle it, like, this is just growth. And it maybe I don't know how to handle it, but everyone like, it'll all work out in the end kind of thing. So just like that alone, that thought process alone didn't make my like cortisol go like freaking way up here because like I can't handle it is like the underlying thing. So just like a testament to how important it is to make sure that your beliefs are rerouted in that direction.
That's
And I think
huge.
that's amazing that you say that, because you probably felt energized afterwards, even though just before you felt totally depleted. And that
Yeah.
just goes to the choice that you could make to make that shift for, for your own well-being, but also for the growth of your company. So that's amazing.
Yeah, thank you.
Good job. Nice work, Haley. Yeah, it's really cool when you kind of start to see areas of implementation that are actually making change, even if it's small steps and change over time. And I think being able to see that change over time is more difficult than like one big result or outcome. So even training our brains in that direction can make a really big difference. But I like something that you said in the book, or it was along this lines: burnout is not the problem, it's the signal. And I think that's a really good distinction. And I don't know that everyone thinks about it in that way. Or sometimes, a single phrase that's just succinct can land and be like, oh, yeah, it's the signal. What is it signaling me? And so that's a big mindset shift to be able to view burnout in a different way. So, what is burnout actually trying to tell us? Like, what is that signal?
Oh, that's such a great question, because, yeah, that's exactly what I talk about. It's a signal that essentially means that something deeper is needing to change. Because I think people, unfortunately, will say, oh, it's a motivation problem, you're lazy, there's a weakness, and all of these things that make people feel that it's a personal issue, right? And essentially, I think if we can listen to the signal properly, it actually becomes the starting point for a completely different way of living and working. So essentially, for me, the whole book is bigger than burnout, even though burnout is such I think, an overused term. Essentially, it's about redefining our success so in a way that actually works with our human system, right? Not against it, which is our old school version would do that. And that allows our energy to be aligned so that success can stop being something that actually drains us and can actually be something that sustains us. And I tend to think that really people think that success costs our energy, and really it should really come from it, is what I believe. So I think it's the signal to be able to not overload your system, because we don't need more tools when we're overwhelmed, right? We need more capacity. I actually was watching your podcast, your most recent one on cortisol, and how Haley had said something about, yeah, I don't need to journal right now, because I'm just going to spiral,
I remember
right?
that.
So true,
Yeah.
though. I think people will give you this sort of, and it's all helpful, it's all relevant, but I think you're right. If you're stuck in this zone of, a cycle, and it can just perpetuate that instead of being that opportunity to change, to upgrade that system. So essentially, I think really when we can look at as a culture to look at our energy comes from within. And I mean, probably both of you from physiology that, each cell in our body has like 70 millivolts of energy. And if you've read any of Bruce Lipton's information that he speaks about, it's like, you have this potential of trillions of volts of electricity or energy within your body. And it's true. I think we just dampen it down, and we unfortunately let it deplete. And it's not just about replenishing. I think that plays a big role of being able to get your sleep and be able to get your stillness time and your downtime, but really being able to generate more energy from within and sustain it, that is really where that shift happens, and where that can be such an impactful shift for, work culture just in general.
Yeah. We were just going through motivators, well, DISC and motivators with our team yesterday. We did like a session. We actually did a session with Dr. Thackeray, an hour with the team over Zoom. And then we did, yeah, it was really fun. And then we did a full, I think it was probably about 2.5 to 3 hours of like intensive time with the team and trying to increase our capacity and understand even what are some of the bigger motivators for each team member. And I
Yeah.
was thinking about that when you said alignment, right? When you start to be able to align with, oh, yeah, I am a very altruistic person, or I am a very economically driven person, or I am a very aesthetically driven person. When you start to understand, and there's more than that, obviously, regulatory and the different categories of it. But when you start to understand that blend, and when I was talking to the team, I was like, even just look at your top 3 and ask yourself, like, are the things that I'm doing in my life, that I'm pouring my heart and soul and my energy into, are they aligned with those deep core beliefs that are like, yes, I want to put time and energy into things that are altruistic. And so I think when you take a step back and do the 30,000 foot view thing, which you were talking about, Suzanne, with being that 30,000 foot view for other people at times, right? Where you're like, if I just take a step back and I look at all of these young professionals and go, what's going on here? Sometimes we can do that within ourselves, but lots of times we need someone else to go, hey, okay, there's something going on here. Like, you're being way too hard on yourself.
Yeah.
Can happen, right? And we can't see it in ourselves.
Yeah.
And my sister just shared a story with me about this. I'm not going to go into all the details of the story because it's not my story, but she just talked about an exercise that she went through, and something she went through when she was young on the school playground. And that, it was something that she didn't even realize had left like a deeper wound in her. And it had to do with rejection. And she talked about how, when she went through this with the counselor she was working through some of the things with, they had said, okay, so go to that moment where you felt rejected and speak to the little girl. How would you speak to her? What tone would you speak in? And she's like, I couldn't believe how like soft and gentle I spoke to this little girl. And then I realized I never speak to myself like that. Like I'm way meaner to myself with my internal dialogue. So it seemed like it fit with what you were talking about with alignment on so many different levels. That was just
Yes.
something that I was thinking and resonating with as you were speaking.
Yeah, no, I think that brings up a good point, because it's in so many levels and layers of our lives, right? And I think the challenge is that it's so easy for our energy to become dispersed and scattered and really almost lose our way, and like, I like that you say you brought them back to what their motivators were, and maybe they didn't even remember, but being able to kind of clear out the noise and feel like, hey, this is really about me, not my fears and insecurities of, when I was a kid and all these other, things that pop up in life, then that's really true alignment. And that's really when you have your most, energetic ability to serve.
Yeah, totally.
Mm-hmm.
And did you want to get into any of your signature concepts, like the hybrid mode versus pure mode? Do you want to leave that for the readers if they get the book? Or
Yeah.
did you want to explain some of the differences between that
Give us a
and
later teaser. Give us
how
a
that
little teaser.
applies? I'm a teaser,
So
yeah.
excited.
I want a
You
little
like that?
teaser. Give me a teaser.
Yeah.
Are you proud of me, Haley? I'm getting better at this podcasting thing.
Yeah, you're awesome. You're pulling out some good things. Yeah. So if we start at sitting, I mean, I'm sure I always take it for granted because everybody that's in my office knows and clinic knows how to sit properly, but most people don't. So I start with smart sitting, and essentially smart being smart with your energy. So S being support the S-shaped curve of your spine. So putting something lumbar in your low back, and that supports as soon as you put something in the low back to support, do you see how it literally brings everything in line, right? Sometimes people feel like they need to support their neck and upper back, but something as small as like a $30 Amazon lumbar cushion we have in the office can make such a difference for people to just all of a sudden feel like, oh yes, now I'm awake, I'm focused, I'm clear, right? And when you can see that connection right away, it's easier to replicate. And then M is minding your head position. So if you're on your phone, we're not letting the head come forward. We're again retracting so that ears in line with the shoulders. Again, that keeps our nervous system. The goal being, she's laughing. The goal being is, you have the least amount of stress on the nervous system. And when you can just set it up in how you're sitting and perform, to do your job all day, it makes such a difference overall. And then we're looking at A, which is looking at your setup, right? You're looking to see where your screens are and where your, how your keyboard is set up, all of these ergonomic things. R is to reposition often. So it's easy to sit nice and fantastic and start working. And then by the end, we're sort of close to the screen and we lose our posture. So being able to reposition often makes a difference. And then I also talk about taking breaks, right? So going for a few minute walk. So that's kind of a little foundation on the core. We talked about the brave shift as well, and that's really just bringing into an activation when you start to be aware, you start to watch where your stressors come up, right? And being able to, that's the first step. If we're not aware of something that makes us feel contracted inside or even just makes you feel bad, if we're not aware of those things, then we just tend to push them away. We push them down. And a lot of times I'm seeing that in somebody's body. And the ultimate, as you've read the book, Dr. Emily, is essentially at the end of the day, all of these stressors, they lead to disease. So my bigger picture in all of this is really helping to prevent these diseases that we don't think of at the time because we're just trying to get through the day. But, research shows that heart disease and cancer and all of these conditions that are really perpetuated from this energy depletion and being suppressing a lot of these stressors into our body instead of letting them, pass through, let's put it that way. And there's also a physiological shift that needs to happen. So you're aware, we get you to start to breathe. I think you guys were talking about that on the last podcast as well. It's so important, right? When we take those deeper breaths and actually activate the vagus nerve, we get our nervous system into that parasympathetic mode, and just teaching it to do that when we get stressed instead of, just thinking about, I'll deal with it later. That's probably the worst thing, because we don't make a change that lasts, right? And then I always get people to make some sort of a physiologic shift. It can be just making a fist or something that you're clenching to change that physiology in the moment. And that's your trigger again to go, oh yeah, I'm in this moment. This is the opportunity for growth, right, Haley? And being able to validate a new thought. That's really where you shifted. I mean, Haley's gone through this already this morning. But validating that new thought and, hey, this is an opportunity for growth, not what am I going to do now that someone else is leaving with burnout. That's the shift that happens. And then lastly, it's really embodying that shift. So when you can change your state, you change your breath, you change how you sit, and you actually embody that into your nervous system, that's how that change becomes much more ingrained in the body and makes a change. That's really where that neuroplasticity starts to occur, right? Where we make changes that we're connecting the brain with new patterns so that it can become our new normal. I think what's hard for people is to say, oh, that sounds easy. And in the moment, you kind of, again, you push it away and I'll do it later. And then it slowly accumulates and goes really the wrong way.
Yeah, it spirals in a different way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you're strengthening the pathways of maybe unhealthy coping mechanisms, to your point of stress, contributing to all these diseases. I think that like stress also makes people do not so awesome habits that can also kind of exacerbate that, right? Where specifically myself, when I get stressed, like maybe I don't eat enough or I don't sleep very well. And like all of those are contributors to like me not feeling great, right? So I think that those very simple things, like sitting is a very simple thing that someone can do. Breathing is a very simple thing that someone can do to like close that stress response and at least get you into a parasympathetic nervous system where your prefrontal cortex is actually in the game and can now think about changing those neural pathways. You know what I mean?
Yes,
Yeah, and I think what you're
exactly.
talking about there is really called maladaptive neuroplasticity, right? It's that the opposite effect that we're now creating neural pathways for
Mhm.
habits that don't serve us. And it can be a vicious cycle. The more that goes on, the harder it is to actually make a change that's for the positive.
Yeah. And so when you use that term neuroplasticity, I love the concept of growth mindset. I think I can speak for some of our listeners, they may have not heard that term before.
Mhm.
So could you expand on that a little bit or just explain it to make sure that's not just like, oh, great, they used a big word?
Yeah, and I think of it really as habits, right? It's habit formation. And I mean, you've seen in your practice as well, I'm sure, the number of times we give people exercise, teach them how to sit, and they go, yeah, 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 I'll do it later, I'll do it later. But I go back to rewiring how their muscular system and teaching those muscles to do something different. So it's like, learning any kind of, let's say a new language or anything in school that you're learning new. You go over repetition so that your brain just gets it and starts to make that change without you having to think about it every single time. So I think of it as creating healthier new habits, but rewiring. That's why the book is called Burnout Rewired, because it's about rewiring the nervous system for greater nervous system capacity, greater energy. And it's not just a matter of snap your fingers and you've read it and it's there. You really need to practice it so that it becomes your new habit and your new level of energy. And once you start to see, I think what's so great about this kind of to work anyways is really people can feel immediate shifts in their nervous system. They feel immediate changes in their energy, but they don't last because they haven't created those nervous system pathways to ingrain it as a habit. So it's so easy to go, oh yeah, that felt great, and then get overwhelmed again and not put the time and energy, but the time and effort into repetition so that it rewires so that we actually feel like there's a change. So we don't have to think about so much. We don't have to, it's just part of us.
Yeah, that's huge. I'd love to tie in identity with that because
Mhm.
what you just brought up hit the nail on the head on so many levels because I think what we can do is we can think of other people and you're like, okay, this is a maladaptive behavior, or this is a poor habit, right? This can also happen with, I'm going to say positive habits or like good habits. So an example that has just occurred for me is I get up at 5:30 in the morning and I exercise four to five times a week, okay? I love powerlifting, I love being strong and muscular and all those things. It's very ingrained. So training at a high level from a young age and just always having trained, it's in the fibers of my being. I feel like it's part of my identity. And when you look at trying to rewire something that's very deeply ingrained in habits that have been there all along, it's a very difficult thing to do. So I shared on a previous episode within this past, I don't even know, I haven't tracked the time, maybe it's been 3 months that I really hurt my neck quite badly to the point where I have I wake up sometimes multiple times a night with like no feeling in my hand and the numbness and tingling and the full, the full gamut of like temperature changes. And it's like, it's not good. It's not just like push through the pain, right? And so what'll happen is the classic behavior where I'm like, oh, I'm getting better. I'm feeling better. I've been adjusted. I'm doing things right. And then I really feel that pull to go right back into heavy lifting. And so it wasn't I'm bringing this up because it has required a rewiring in how I think of the phase, because we'll go within the fitness realm, we'll go from like, we're in hypertrophy, we're in a power phase, we're in a, we have all these different things that we do because we're always trying to enhance performance. And what landed with me is I was like, how come I can't just force myself to skip heavy deadlift or skip my overhead press and do my neck rehab exercises instead? It feels so not enough, you know? And so it's like, I'm doing chin tucks and I'm like, I'm not doing full push-ups. I'm just doing scapular push-ups. What is this? It's not enough, you know? I know these things and I'm also like trained in them and know how to teach other people, but then you got to do it yourself. That's a whole other story, right? And you need to do it for a long period of time, not just a week, not just 2 weeks. And so what really shifted the rewiring in my mind was this is a precision phase. So I'm not in power, I'm not in hypertrophy, I am in precision. I need to get my nervous system to fire very precisely, deeper muscles. I am working on coordination and precision to the point where this is going to relieve stress off my very specific nerve injury. And then my phase to get back into hypertrophy and power, they're going to come later. It's always coming back to a long-term game. And I say this because, guys, we can talk about it all day, but when you actually have to implement it, it's not an easy thing to do, but it is the right thing to do, and it will pay off later. I've literally just had to walk myself through this in the last few weeks. And so you talk about rewriting the code and how our beliefs and our identity shape our energy. What is one small shift that you would recommend we make today to change that internal wiring?
Well, and I think I'm glad you shared that because you kind of almost you think of the patients we've seen on the table over the years, right? I mean, how many times have we seen that? It's so funny. But I think the key thing is number one, listen to your body as you're doing, right? And it's feedback. It's kind of like we talk about burnout is a signal, pain is a signal, and you have to take that deeper dive to go, okay, what is it that my body needs right now? And it's interesting because, of course, we've known each other for a number of years, and I know you and I are both high D. And you like to push,
BMI.
right? And it's like, I got to do, I got to do, I got to do. And you even talked about the checklist and, all these things that we need to, power through, right? And it's amazing how I feel like these things come up because the body, and you're right on with the precision, because that's a key thing. And it's not just about rest, but it's about taking time to allow the body to function more effectively, with more precision, and strengthen on that instead of power through what your mind thinks is the next thing you need to do, right? It's about that being inside to go, hey, take a step back. What do we see that is screaming at me right now? And that really helps you to power through. So I think two things is you've done, as I said, listening to the signals. But number two is it's not always about doing more, right? I feel like it's about taking that step back to be in your body and go, hey, what is it that I actually really need right now? And you listened and you made the change and it's working, right? I think that's such a huge thing.
I think bringing it home to an example can be helpful, and also being willing to say out loud, like notice and name what you're going through. Because, Dr. John and I, we work together, right? We split the shifts. We do, we build our business together. We help our community together. And because we divide up our different tasks and roles, through this process for me, he said, I really think I should work the shift this afternoon. Like, I don't think you're ready to be back for this volume. And I was like, it's okay though. I can do it. And he's like, no, you shouldn't do it. And I know that he's right. And then I said, what really helped in that moment was I said, hun, I struggle with feel like I'm retreating. I don't want it to be like I'm retreating away from this. And he's like, no. He totally in that moment talked me through reframing it and how he's like, it's okay. I'm good. I will do the shift. We can easily like rework this. And this is what your body needs right now. And I think that having another person that is grounded in moments when we're going through it ourselves is such a gift. And I think there are times when we can resist that help. And that can be I think that can really be part of burnout too. And I think you spoke to that too, Haley, when you said about your interaction this morning, where you want to go back to well, that's fine. I'll just pick up the pieces. I'll just do it all. And it's like, no, there is a different way. We
Know
just
your
need to
limit,
give
play
ourselves a
within it.
moment to figure it out.
Know your limit, play with it. There will be like an adjustment period of like, okay,
Yes.
this might feel like a lot, but that's okay. But the anticipation is for it to not just like, oh, I'm just gonna grab it back and like hoard everything. Like, no, there is a plan to get it off of both of our plates because like the company has outgrown both of us.
Yeah.
So now we need a third person, which is totally okay. But like within this weird kind of weird turbulence, like we have each other's backs until we get someone else and like it'll all work out kind of thing. But yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
Huge.
Having someone next to you being like, actually, you know what? Maybe no.
Maybe no, you're not doing that. Okay.
Yes, sir.
That's great. Uh,
I was just going to say, I think that's interesting, the word you use, retreat, right? It's like,
mhm.
it's so hard to be able to go. You feel like you always have to be on. You feel like you always have to be pushing, right, to the next level and what have you. And it feels like it's a setback, but it's really necessary for that calibration, right? And I wouldn't even say retreat. It's just change your path for the moment.
Mhm. Yeah, totally. And I feel like we're getting close to the end of our time here. I had one more question that was kind of around someone stuck in survival mode. Like if someone's stuck in survival mode right now, overstimulated, overwhelmed, what would be the take home thing you want to say to them today while we're on this episode?
Well, you mean in the moment, get them out of
Yeah.
it, or long
Mhm.
term?
Either.
Both.
Yeah.
Both.
That's a big question. So I would say probably two things. We've kind of touched on them already. Number one is being aware. You have to be aware that you're in survival. You can't feel like, because if you're not aware, then that's your normal. You have to be aware that a
Mhm.
shift needs to happen. So that's number one. Number two, I would say the very easiest, fastest thing you can do, and I think in the very back of the book, I had a little like a balance. I can't even remember what I called it, but essentially this sort of thing over 3 minutes where you have it's a reset, it's a balance. Bring
Oh, the
yourself
balance
back.
point technique? Is it the
Yeah, the
balance point technique? Yeah.
balance point technique. I couldn't remember what I called it. It was at the very end as I was writing the book. I'm like, I want to just put something. Yeah. Something that is super easy and short that people can integrate because you know nobody has time in a day to say, okay, I'm going off for 20 minutes and like meditating. But if you've got
Mhm.
something you can do for 3, 5 minutes, I even say if you have to like go to the bathroom, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, it's the awareness. So you need to get yourself into a space for 2 or 3 minutes. And then number two, it's really using your breath, right? And in that technique, it talks about allowing and releasing and really just getting that nervous system in the moment. And the more often you can do this, the more easy it gets to integrate into your life is you're shifting in that moment your nervous system from survival to restoration, to recharge, right? And yes, it may not feel like it lasts for very long at the time, but the more you do that, the more your body's going to start to give you signals. Again, burnout being a signal, but give you signals earlier on that you need to take that time. And as I said, we're talking like 3 minutes, but it's such a huge. I'm sure you both have used that at some point to just really focus, and sometimes it can feel like, yeah, just take a deep breath. But at the end of the day, physiologically, neurologically, and you know, even just the feeling of expansion is such a huge shift for people that there is science behind it. It's not just take a deep breath and everything will be okay. It's actually really shifting how we want to breathe. We all want to shallowly breathe in our chest. I mean, how many people do we see that have like traps and scalenes that are on fire all the time? And they don't realize that contributes to their neck pain because they're breathing so shallowly and they're staying in that survival mode. So I teach almost everybody that they need to shift their breath to their abdomen, and I show them how immediately those upper trap muscles, they soften, you know, and you can feel like you get more oxygen to perform in your day. So that in conjunction with stimulating the vagus nerve, there's just so many benefits, and it's an easy thing you could do that doesn't cost you any money. You don't have to buy anything. You don't have to add it to your to-do list. You know, I think we can get overwhelmed with external help. And really, at the end of the day, this all comes from us internally. And I think that's the challenge, that people try to fix burnout from the external world, but really missing the fact entirely that it's coming from the nervous system not being able to produce that energy, but also sustain it.
Mm-hmm.
That's so good. Haley, did you have any wrap-up thoughts?
I freaking love this episode. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much
It's such
for
a
coming
good
on and
connection.
spending time with us. I
Aw.
appreciate it. And
And
I will be buying your book.
Good. And where is everyone getting your book, Suzanne?
It's on Amazon, amazon.ca, amazon.com. I think we have 3 formats now. So ebook is out, and then paperback and hardcover, and then eventually we'll get to a Kindle, an Audible version. But right now it's paperback. And as you know, I mean, I wrote it so that it's not overwhelming. If you saw that, Dr. Emily, it's like lots of white spaces. There's subtitles, and it's easy to read. It's a bigger font, so you don't feel overwhelmed by, oh my gosh, I got to read the. And it's not thick. So it's meant to be an easy read and meant to be full of analogies. So I'm all about simplicity on the other side of complexity, right? And really having people read it and go, oh my gosh, I thought it was going to be, overwhelming, but it really made sense. And that's kind of the idea behind it, so that it's an easy read, but learning how to implement is the key.
Exactly what someone needs when they are in that moment, right?
Yeah.
Very practical, and again, not easy right away to implement, but simple principles that you can draw out and implement over time. So definitely get her book. Thank you for being here today. So proud of you. And I'm really happy that we're able to reconnect. Make sure you share this episode with a friend, because it's going to help lots of people. Click the subscribe button if you haven't already. And in the meantime, be free, feel fresh, and live on fire.